From Ric Flair and his troubled son David, to The Undertaker's son who walked away from wrestling, and Rey Mysterio's son who turned on him in the ring, in this video, we're breaking down some of the most unforgettable father-son moments in WWE history. Some carried the torch, some dropped it, and some lit a whole new fire. Let's get into it. Ric Flair and David Flair.
I told you I was mad at you, got it?
And I'm telling you not to air a personal grievance on this show.
Few names carry as much weight in wrestling as Ric Flair. The Nature Boy is more than a legend. He's the standard bearer of charisma, showmanship, and championship pedigree. With 16 world titles and a career that spans decades, Ric Flair defined what it meant to be the man. Naturally, when his son David Flair stepped into the ring, expectations weren't just high, they were astronomical. Ric Flair, the flamboyant Nature Boy, is one of the most decorated and charismatic wrestlers of all time. His name is wrestling royalty. His son, David Flair, tried to walk the same path, but the weight of legacy proved heavy. David debuted in WCW in the late 90s, entangled in storylines alongside and against his father. He even turned on Rick during a major NWO angle, which drew massive attention but also highlighted David's inexperience. Despite winning the WCW US Championship, his in-ring work never matched the standards set by his father's legendary career. After WCW's collapse, David had a brief stint in WWE's developmental territory but failed to gain traction. Outside the ring, David faced personal issues, including a DUI arrest in 2008, which strained his relationship with Rick. Though his wrestling career was short-lived, David remains part of the larger Flair narrative. His attempt to live up to Rick's greatness was sincere but challenging. Meanwhile, Rick's daughter, Charlotte Flair, has gone on to become a multiple-time WWE Women's Champion, successfully extending the Flair legacy with her own flair and dominance. Like David Flair, this next WWE champion inherited the weight of expectation, but fate had a different plan for his son. Ricky Steamboat and Richie Steamboat. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat is one of the greatest in-ring technicians of all time. His matches were clinics in storytelling, and his name is synonymous with class and precision. Naturally, when his son, Richie Steamboat, entered the wrestling world, expectations soared. Richie showed promise early. Trained by his father and other wrestling legends, he rose quickly through WWE's former developmental brand, Florida Championship Wrestling, FCW. His style mirrored Ricky's, fluid, crisp, and emotionally driven. In 2012, Richie won the FCW Heavyweight Championship, positioning himself as a future NXT standout. But fate intervened. A serious spinal injury derailed his career, and Richie never made it to WWE's main roster. He stepped away from the ring quietly, and while fans mourned the lost potential, Richie later opened up about his struggles with depression and coping with the pressure of carrying a legendary name. However, while Richie's journey was cut short, this next father and son dynamic is one that will always leave the WWE scene shocked. The Undertaker and Gunnar Calaway. Few names in wrestling are as legendary as The Undertaker. For over 3 decades, Mark Calaway captivated audiences with his persona and unmatched presence in the WWE ring. Given such a powerful legacy, many expected his son, Gunnar Calaway, to follow suit. But Gunnar's path led elsewhere. Born in 1993, Gunnar grew up during the peak of his father's fame, attending WWE events and getting a glimpse of the spectacle behind the scenes. He once considered stepping into the ring himself, even describing wrestling as like being a superhero. But as he matured, his interest shifted toward creative and digital pursuits. Gunnar went on to earn a degree in video game art from Full Sail University and has since worked in tech roles, including IT operations. His goal? To build his own independent game studio, carving out a future far from the squared circle. Despite walking a different path, there's no public sign of tension between father and son. Gunnar has remained respectful of the wrestling world and his father's influence while choosing a quieter, more private life. But while Gunnar Calaway chose a quiet, creative path away from the ring, this next legend's son found himself drawn to the spotlight in a very different arena: football. Bill Goldberg and Gage Goldberg.
These kids have to understand that, the decision you make is pretty much dictating the next 4 years of your life.
Bill Goldberg's name is etched into wrestling history, an unstoppable force with an unmatched streak and a dominating ring presence. But his son, Gage Goldberg, is forging a different legacy, one grounded in individuality and quiet confidence. Gage first entered the WWE spotlight in 2021 during SummerSlam, when he jumped into the ring to defend his father from Bobby Lashley, only to be caught in the Hurt Lock. Though the moment was scripted, it sparked conversation about safety and the pressures of being the child of a wrestling legend. Rather than pursue pursue wrestling, Gage channeled his energy into football. As a standout linebacker at Bourne Champion High School, he earned a spot on the University of Colorado's football team in early 2024, joining as a preferred walk-on. The program, led by Deion Sanders, an old NFL teammate of Goldberg, added an interesting full-circle twist to his journey. While Gage hasn't ruled out a wrestling career, calling it a possible backup plan, his focus remains on carving his own path in collegiate sports. Unlike Gage, who steered away from wrestling, this next family's legacy spans generations of icons, tragedy, and true transformation. Stu Hart and Bret and Owen Hart. When it comes to wrestling royalty, few families command as much respect as the Harts. At the center is Stu Hart, a no-nonsense wrestler, trainer, and patriarch who turned his Calgary basement into the famed Dungeon, a training ground that molded legends with sweat, technique, and toughness. From Stu's intense regimen emerged his sons, Bret and Owen Hart, each a wrestling icon in his own right. Bret, the Hitman Hart, became known as the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, capturing multiple WWE titles and elevating in-ring storytelling to an art. His matches with Shawn Michaels, Steve Austin, and his brother Owen became defining moments of the 1990s wrestling era. Owen Hart, the King of Hearts, brought a lighter, more unpredictable flair to the ring. Gifted, charismatic, and agile, Owen was beloved by fans for his blend of technical mastery and mischief. But in 1999, tragedy struck. During a live WWE pay-per-view, a stunt went fatally wrong, and Owen died. An incident that shocked the industry and forced wrestling promotions to rethink safety protocols. However, from the Canadian Dungeon to the American Dream, this next wrestler took his family's name and forged it into a new era. Dusty Rhodes and Cody Rhodes.
All the paint, all the galaxies, all the stars, everything that you look up to mean nothing without family. Because let me tell you something, there's common blood here. Common blood.
Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, wasn't just a wrestler, he was a working-class icon, beloved for his charisma, his passion, and his ability to connect with fans. A WWE Hall of Famer and booking genius, Dusty's influence on wrestling can't be overstated. His son, Cody Rhodes, grew up immersed in that world, but rather than live in his father's shadow, he chose to expand the Rhodes name in his own bold direction. Cody's early WWE career had potential, but was limited by creative missteps. In 2016, frustrated with his direction, he left WWE and blazed a trail on the independent scene. He rose to international stardom through NJPW, Ring of Honor, and most notably as a co-founder of All Elite Wrestling, AEW. There, Cody proved himself as a performer and executive, helping change the wrestling industry's landscape. In a shocking return in 2022, Cody rejoined WWE with a mission to finish the story his father started by capturing the WWE Championship, the one title Dusty never won. His promos have been deeply emotional, often referencing Dusty's dream and the pressure of carrying that legacy. However, where Cody honored his father through legacy building, this next son chose a different route: rebellion. Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio. Rey Mysterio, WWE's high-flying icon, built his career on underdog victories, lucha tradition, and unmatched heart. He's a Hall of Famer, a fan favorite, and a living legend. But his legacy took an unexpected turn when his son, Dominic Mysterio, stepped into the ring and then turned on him. Dominic debuted in 2020 with Rey's support and quickly impressed fans. The two made history as the first father-son tag team champions in WWE, a milestone filled with emotion and pride. But by 2022, that pride soured. Dominic shocked the WWE Universe by joining the Judgment Day and attacking his father. It wasn't just a heel turn, it was personal. Dominic accused Rey of overshadowing him and keeping him from becoming his own man. What followed was one of the most compelling family feuds in modern wrestling. Dominic embraced his role as a disrespectful heel, renaming himself Dirty Dom and fully leaning into the rebellious son persona. Rey, heartbroken but resilient, refused to fight him until WrestleMania 39, where the two clashed in an emotionally charged match that Rey won, teaching his son a painful lesson in respect. However, Dominic's turn may have shocked audiences. This next family story remains one of wrestling's most tragic yet enduring tales. Fritz Von Erich and the Von Erich brothers. Few wrestling families have captured both the glory and heartbreak of the sport like the Von Erichs. Led by Fritz Von Erich, born Jack Adkisson, the Texas-based dynasty rose to prominence through World-Class Championship Wrestling, WCCW, which Fritz helped build into a nationally recognized promotion. Known early in his career for a controversial Nazi sympathizer heel gimmick, Fritz eventually became a revered promoter and patriarch, dreaming of a wrestling empire carried on by his sons. 5 of his 6 sons, Kevin, David, Kerry, Mike, and Chris, Chris entered the ring and became icons of the 1980s. Kevin, the intense barefoot brawler, stood out with raw emotion. David was hailed as a future world champion before his untimely death in 1984. Kerry, perhaps the most famous, won the NWA World Heavyweight Championship and later shined in WWE as the Texas Tornado. But behind the fame were deep personal struggles, injuries, addiction, and devastating loss. The so-called Von Erich curse looms large in wrestling lore. Tragically, 5 of Fritz's sons died young. 3 by suicide, 1 from illness, and 1 in a childhood accident. Only Kevin survives today, preserving the family's legacy with strength and sorrow. Meanwhile, also like the Von Erichs, the next legend on the list wrestles with a legacy shaped by loss, but he's now using the ring to reclaim a bond with his father. Brian Pillman and Brian Pillman Jr. Brian Pillman Sr. was a whirlwind of intensity, known as the Loose Cannon. He shattered wrestling conventions with a character so wild it blurred reality. His sudden death in 1997 left the industry stunned and left behind a young son, Brian Pillman Jr., who would one day seek to reconnect with his father the only way he knew how, through wrestling. Trained at the Storm Wrestling Academy, Pillman Jr. brought back his dad's unmistakable edge with a modern twist, rocking a mullet, sharp promos, and undeniable ring charisma. He broke out in Major League Wrestling MLW, then rose to national attention in AEW as one half of the Varsity Blondes. But behind the nostalgia was something deeper, a young man grappling with loss, identity, and legacy. Raised by his aunt after a turbulent childhood, Brian Jr. used wrestling to reclaim the memory of a father he barely knew. As he's shared in interviews and the documentary Dark Side of the Ring, stepping into the ring wasn't about imitation, it was about healing, honoring, and forging his own path. In 2023, he took that evolution a step further, signing with WWE and debuting in NXT under a new name, Lexis King, paying tribute to his late sister, Alexis. However, legacy runs deep. Few wore it with the pride and passion of the next up wrestler, who turned pain into purpose. Gory Guerrero and Eddie Guerrero. The Guerrero name is deeply rooted in wrestling history, beginning with Gory Guerrero, a pioneer who helped shape Lucha Libre into a Mexican institution. A master technician and savvy promoter, Gory laid the foundation for a wrestling dynasty, but it was his son, Eddie Guerrero, who took that legacy global. Eddie was born into the business, learning to bump before most kids learned to ride a bike. His journey spanned continents, from Mexico to Japan to ECW and WCW before reaching WWE, where he became a superstar. With unmatched charisma and a lie, cheat, and steal swagger, Eddie could light up arenas with a wink or wreck opponents with flawless in-ring skill. His 2004 WWE Championship win over Brock Lesnar wasn't just a title change, it was a cultural moment. Eddie stood tall as a Latino hero, embracing his roots with pride. That celebration with his mother in the ring, iconic. Representation never hit so hard. Eddie's openness about his battles with addiction made his redemption arc even more powerful. However, while Eddie brought charisma to life inside the ring, the Next Up legend's legacy extends to his son in a more personal, inspiring way. Ted DiBiase Sr. and Ted DiBiase Jr.
What are you talking about? You set me up to fail. You put me in an impossible situation. You wanted me to lose. It's still all about you, isn't it? The great $1 million man. You can't get over yourself. You came here to steal my spotlight? This is my time!
Ted DiBiase Sr., known as the $1 Million Man, became one of WWE's greatest villains, flaunting wealth and arrogance while carrying his iconic $1 Million Championship. His legacy was legendary, setting a high bar for any successor, especially his son, Ted DiBiase Jr. Ted Jr. debuted in WWE in 2008 and made an immediate impact, capturing World Tag Team Gold with Cody Rhodes. As part of the Legacy faction alongside Randy Orton, he looked poised to follow in his father's championship footsteps. WWE even revived the $1 Million Championship storyline for him, hoping to channel the DiBiase magic into a new era. Despite a promising start, Ted Jr.'s momentum fizzled, and by 2013 he had quietly exited WWE. Outside the ring, he shifted his focus to ministry and business, but controversy soon followed. In 2023, Ted DiBiase Jr. faced serious legal troubles, indicted for his alleged role in a welfare fraud scandal involving the misappropriation of millions from Mississippi's TNF program. The allegations shocked the wrestling community and cast a shadow over the once proud DiBiase legacy. While Ted Sr. continued his faith-based outreach, the family name faced a major public reckoning. But while the DiBiase legacy faced turbulence outside the ring, this up-next second-generation star quietly honored his family's wrestling tradition with grit, humility, and an unwavering commitment to his father's name. Harley Race and Leland Race. In the pantheon of wrestling greats, Harley Race stands tall as one of the most rugged, respected, and revered champions to ever step into the ring. An 8-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Race was the very definition of a no-nonsense competitor. Hard-hitting, methodical, and proud. He wasn't flashy, but he was feared, and for good reason. Nicknamed the King in WWE, Harley was a trailblazer who helped shape wrestling's transition from territory days to national television. He worked with legends like Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, and Hulk Hogan, leaving an indelible mark as a competitor and a mentor. Harley's promos were brief but intense. His punches were stiff and his legacy ironclad. But while the name Harley Race still sends chills down spines, many may not know that he passed that legacy on to his son, Leland Race. Leland never reached the global spotlight that his father commanded, but he carved out his own path in the independent wrestling circuit. Trained by Harley himself, Leland adopted a traditional in-ring style that emphasized psychology and storytelling over flash, a true tribute to his father's teachings. He wrestled for Harley's promotion, World League Wrestling, WLW, where he also worked as a trainer and mentor for young talent. Leland's passion for wrestling mirrored Harley's, not just in what happened between the ropes, but in the way he helped others grow in the business. Though Leland never signed with WWE or AEW, he represented the Race name with class and commitment. He also played a key role in maintaining his father's vision for WLW after Harley's passing in 2019. While Leland upheld his father's teachings, this next legend flipped family legacy on its head with stunts and swagger. Vince and Shane McMahon. In the world of wrestling dynasties, no name looms larger than McMahon. Vince McMahon didn't just revolutionize the business, he became the business. Taking his father's regional promotion and launching it into a global empire, Vince built WWE on spectacle, controversy, and sheer willpower. He wasn't just the boss, he was the puppet master of pop culture's wildest soap opera. But behind every titan is a wild card, and that wild card is Shane McMahon. Shane started from the ground up, working in production before stepping into the ring in the late 90s. What he lacked in traditional wrestling pedigree, he made up for with pure adrenaline. Shane O'Mac was fearless. He didn't just wrestle, he launched himself off stages, cages, and jumbotrons. His clashes with legends like The Undertaker and Kurt Angle turned him from the boss's son into a certified fan favorite. Still, the McMahon legacy isn't without friction. Shane left WWE in 2010 to explore tech ventures and global business opportunities, sparking rumors of internal family tension. His explosive return in 2016 brought massive crowd reactions and a renewed sense of unpredictability. Unlike Shane, who thrived as an executive daredevil, this particular fighter became a full-blown wrestling legend, just like his dad. Bob Orton Jr. and Randy Orton. The Orton name is synonymous with wrestling greatness, beginning with Bob Orton Jr., better known as Cowboy Bob Orton. A WWE Hall of Famer, Bob's mastery of the old-school heel persona and his iconic cast-on-arm gimmick made him a memorable figure, playing a key role in the first-ever WrestleMania main event. But it would be his son, Randy Orton, who would elevate the family legacy to unmatched heights. Randy, a third-generation wrestler, debuted in WWE in 2002 with high expectations. Quickly, he became a dominant force, first as a member of Evolution, and later as the Legend Killer, where he took out some of wrestling's biggest names, including his father. At just 24, Randy made history as the youngest WWE World Heavyweight Champion, and his career only soared from there. Whether as the Viper, the Apex Predator, or a member of the Wyatt family, Randy's evolution in the ring is legendary. With multiple world titles, Royal Rumble wins, and unforgettable matches, he has cemented himself as one of WWE's most decorated superstars. Despite his success, Randy has often reflected on the pressure and influence of being Bob's son, acknowledging the sacrifices his father made for the business. However, if Randy Orton is proof that bloodline can define greatness, then this next up wrestler is a modern reminder that the next generation can be even more explosive. Braun Breaker and Rick Steiner.
Been a great ride for you. See, I can't wait to see what the rest of it's gonna be.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah, just keep on doing my stuff. You get somewhere. You're full of crap.
Rick Steiner, one half of the legendary Steiner brothers, made his name as a ferocious, no-nonsense powerhouse in WCW and WWE. Known for his collegiate wrestling background and hard-hitting style, Rick's impact on tag team wrestling is undeniable. His son, Braun Breaker, inherited that same intensity, but added a whole new dimension of explosiveness and athleticism. Debuting in WWE NXT, in 2021, Braun made an immediate impact. With a mix of brutal strength and impressive agility, he quickly captured the NXT Championship, proving himself as a future main eventer. His name might not say Steiner, but his performance screamed legacy. Fans recognized the signature Steiner explosiveness, suplex-heavy offense, and sheer dominance. Rick Steiner took a backseat role, supporting his son from behind the scenes but occasionally making public appearances, most notably during the Steiner Brothers WWE Hall of Fame induction in 2022, where Braun introduced the legendary team. Braun has since begun transitioning to WWE's main roster and already made waves with his electric presence and fierce demeanor. While Rick conquered Tag Team Glory, Braun is being positioned to dominate as a solo world champion, a new chapter for the Steiner lineage. Braun carved out a powerful solo path, but this next wrestler's tribute to tradition showed that legacy can also be lived humbly. Curt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, and Curtis Axel.
Because today is a special day for me. It's my father's birthday. You know, my father was good friends with Andre the Giant. I have pictures at my home of Andre and myself. So this is what I'm gonna do. I want to make my father proud.
The pressure of following in the footsteps of a legend is immense, especially when your father is Curt Mr. Perfect Hennig, one of the most technically gifted wrestlers of all time. Curt's flawless in-ring work and charisma made him a household name, leaving big shoes for his son Joe Hennig to fill. Joe, wrestling under the name Curtis Axel, stepped into WWE's developmental system before making his main roster debut. His name itself was a tribute to his wrestling heritage, blending his father's Mr. Perfect persona with his grandfather Larry the Axe Hennig's legacy. Curtis quickly made an impact, winning the Intercontinental Championship in 2013, echoing his father's success. That moment symbolized the passing of the torch, a generational achievement. Despite his early success, Curtis Axel's career faced challenges, with creative direction often limiting his opportunities. Still, he found a niche, forming the B-Team with Bo Dallas, capturing the Raw Tag Team Championships in 2018, and showcasing his comedic side. Throughout his career, Axel remained a true professional. While Curtis Axel may not have reached the same level of superstardom as his father, he embodied a different kind of perfection, humble, reliable, and proud of his roots. However, Axel may have quietly honored his father's footsteps, but this next wrestler reimagined his lineage into something surreal and unforgettable. Mike Rotunda and Bray Wyatt. In wrestling, legacies are often passed down through moves and mannerisms, but for Mike Rotunda and his son Bray Wyatt, their legacy was reborn in a far more imaginative way. Mike, best known as Irwin R. Shyster IRS, became a fixture in the 1990s WWF with his taxman gimmick. While the character was comedic and hated, Mike was a reliable and technically sound wrestler, also making his mark in WCW as part of the Varsity Club. But it was his son, Wyndham Rotunda, who would redefine the family legacy. After some early gimmicks, Wyndham became Bray Wyatt, a cult leader with eerie charisma and psychological depth. Leading the Wyatt family, Bray captivated audiences with his chilling promos and slow-burn storytelling. In 2019, Bray reinvented himself as The Fiend, a twisted, slasher-inspired character who blurred the lines between wrestling and cinematic horror. His dual personalities, Sweet Children's host by day and monstrous destroyer by night, pushed the boundaries of creative storytelling, making Bray a unique force in WWE. Though Mike's legacy was solid, Bray's transformative approach to wrestling and character development was revolutionary. Tragically, Bray Wyatt passed away in 2023 at just 36, leaving behind a legacy that transcended his father's, but was built on a foundation of discipline and mental toughness. Although Bray pushed storytelling into darkness, this next legend brought flair and flavor to his family's legacy, with a spit of apple and swagger. Carlos Colon Sr. and Carlito. Carlos Colon Sr. is a legendary figure in Puerto Rican wrestling, widely regarded as the founder of the World Wrestling Council, WWC, and a national hero. As a wrestler and promoter, he helped elevate Puerto Rico's passion for pro wrestling to a global stage. His contributions were recognized when he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2014, solidifying his place in history. But Carlos's greatest WWE legacy came through his son Carlito, aka Carlos Colon Jr. With a swaggering, street-smart persona, Carlito debuted in WWE in 2004 by defeating John Cena for the United States Championship in his first match. His Caribbean cool persona quickly became a fan favorite, fueled by his cocky charisma and the signature move of spitting apple in opponents' faces. Carlito's career in WWE was marked by several championships, including the Intercontinental and Tag Team titles, often alongside his brother Primo. Though Carlito left WWE in 2010, he remained a fixture in wrestling, particularly in Puerto Rico and the independent circuit. He made a surprise return to WWE during the 2021 Royal Rumble, proving that the Colon legacy is far from over. And while Carlito represented Caribbean charisma, this next evergreen legend embodied global wrestling revolution with a legacy that broke borders and bridged cultures. Antonio Inoki and Hiroshi. Antonio Inoki is a name synonymous with the revolution of professional wrestling, not just in Japan, but globally. As a wrestler, promoter, and cultural ambassador, Inoki blurred the lines between combat sports and entertainment, pioneering a new era of wrestling. Trained by Rikidozan, the father of Japanese pro wrestling, Inoki founded New Japan Pro Wrestling NJPW in 1972, turning it into a breeding ground for world-class talent like Shinsuke Nakamura and Kazuchika Okada. Inoki's style combined wrestling with martial arts, creating the foundation for what would become known as strong style. His groundbreaking 1976 match against Muhammad Ali, a mixed rules bout, helped push wrestling into the global sports conversation, even if the bout itself was controversial and awkward. Despite rumors, there's no verified evidence linking Hiroshi as Antonio's biological or trained son. Instead, Inoki's true legacy is embodied in NJPW, the stars he mentored, and the strong style he defined. Inoki's passing in 2022 marked the end of an era, but his influence lives on through NJPW, his wrestling innovations. His iconic catchphrase, 1, 2, 3, da, remains a tribute to his indelible mark on the wrestling world. However, as Antonio Inoki reshaped wrestling's global identity with innovation and diplomacy across the ocean, this last legend was quietly building a legacy of resilience and traditional excellence in the heart of America's wrestling scene. Bob Backlund and Kerry Backlund. Bob Backlund is one of the most unique champions in WWE history, a man whose intensity, work ethic, and old-school values made him both beloved and bewildering. Known for his no-nonsense attitude and clean-cut persona, Backlund reigned as WWF champion for an incredible 2,135 days, one of the longest reigns in the company's history. He wasn't the flashiest guy in the room, but his wrestling technique, amateur background, and unmatched cardio made him a true ring general. Even when he returned in the 1990s with a crazed, conservative persona demanding fans recite U.S. presidents or applying the deadly crossface, Chicken Wing, he was still captivating in a bizarre, brilliant way. With that kind of legacy, one might expect his offspring to follow suit, but Kerry Backlund, Bob's son, chose a different route. Unlike many second-generation stars, Kerry never pursued a wrestling career. He's made rare public appearances and has kept a low profile, choosing a path outside the squared circle. In fact, there's very little known about his personal or professional life, and Bob himself has always respected his son's privacy and independence. What's admirable here is Bob's unwavering support. Despite being a man of tradition and old-school values, Bob has never pressured his children into wrestling. In interviews, he's expressed pride in their life choices, emphasizing that wrestling was his calling, not theirs. Thank you for sticking till the end of this journey. For more stories like this, click the next card on display. Until another time.